Good night. And always remember, that's...
Do you remember Joaquin Phoenix? The brilliant, enigmatic actor admired for his haunting performances and the unforgettable smile he gave the world as a Joker. But behind that iconic image was a life nothing like the one audiences imagined, a life shaped by poverty, instability, and a tragedy that would follow him forever. And even more shocking, it all began with a single night outside the Viper Room, the night his brother River Phoenix collapsed in his arms. How could someone destined for greatness carry so much hidden pain? The rare, private photos you've never seen, and the untold truth behind them will be revealed in this video. Stay until the end to understand why Joaquin Phoenix remains a name the world admires and mourns. Joaquin Raphael Phoenix was born on October 28, 1974 in San Juan, Puerto Rico, far from Hollywood, far from stability, and far from the future the world now associates with his name. His parents, Arlene and John Bottom, were searching for meaning at a time when they had very little to hold on to. They drifted across the Caribbean with their growing family, following a religious movement that would later become known for all the wrong reasons. Children of God, in the rare family photos taken during those years, you can see the contrast clearly. A smiling child standing in sunlight, and behind him, a world collapsing under the weight of its own secrets. Joaquin was too young to understand the movement's darker doctrine, but he felt the instability, the constant travel, the unfamiliar faces, the expectation to adapt to every new environment. There was no steady home, no consistent school, no sense of normal childhood. Life was motion, life was uncertainty. But there was one anchor, River, older, confident, already shining with the kind of natural magnetism that made people stop and watch. River was a calm in the storm, the brother who could turn hunger into laughter, who could make a bare room feel warm just by being in it. And Joaquin, quiet and introspective, grew up watching River receive the attention, the admiration, and the hope of the entire family. When the Bottom family finally left Children of God in 1978, the decision was driven by fear, a fear that the group's teachings were becoming increasingly harmful. They boarded a cargo ship to the United States with only what they could carry. No savings, no home waiting, no plan, just a desire to escape, just a desire to start again. They arrived in Los Angeles poor, exhausted, and determined. Arlene found work as a secretary. John struggled through a period of depression and uncertainty, and the children performed on street corners, singing harmonies, playing guitar, hoping someone would drop a few coins into a hat. In those moments, captured in faded snapshots, you could almost see the beginning of what would become their careers. Not glamour, not destiny, just survival. But even in the fragile early days, something else was growing inside Joaquin, a sensitivity deeper than most children, a quiet awareness of pain, a desire to understand emotions that didn't yet have names. While River soaked in the sun of natural charisma, Joaquin absorbed the shadows, the instability, the silence, the memories of childhood spent inside a movement that demanded obedience but offered confusion. These early experiences shaped him in ways he wouldn't fully understand until much later. They made him guarded. They made him observant. They made him feel, from a very young age, that life was unpredictable and that the people you love most could disappear at any moment. And as the Phoenix family slowly built a new life in California, rare photos from the era showed two brothers standing side by side, River radiating outward, Joaquin folding inward, two trajectories beginning to separate, two futures that would collide with tragedy. For now, they were just boys with big dreams, but fate had already chosen their roles. By the early 1980s, the Phoenix family was living in Los Angeles, a city where dreams and desperation often share the same street corner. River began attracting attention almost immediately. Talent agents saw something undeniable in him, a natural, intuitive brilliance that couldn't be taught. Every audition he entered seemed to transform into an opportunity. And as River rose, cameras followed. Joaquin, meanwhile, was still finding himself. He was only 8 years old when he walked into one of his first casting rooms, using the name Lee Phoenix, a nickname he chose because his siblings already had nature-themed names. When the producers asked him to smile, He hesitated, not out of fear, but out of honesty. Joaquin didn't know how to force emotions. He could only express what felt real. That was his gift. That was also his challenge. In early home videos and rare behind-the-scenes photos from those years, Joaquin often appears in the background, hands tucked into his pockets, eyes scanning the room, absorbing every detail. He wasn't trying to outshine River. He was studying the world around him, learning how people moved, how they spoke, how they hid their pain. His first on-screen roles came through television. In 1982, he appeared in 7 Brides for 7 Brothers, followed by small roles in Hill Street Blues and The Fall Guy. The parts were minor, but the emotional depth he brought to them was unusual for a child actor. Directors described him as intense and surprisingly mature. One casting assistant later recalled that Joaquin didn't just deliver lines, he lived inside them. Still, the public didn't notice him. Hollywood saw only River. As River's career accelerated, Stand By Me, 1986, Running on Empty, 1988, Joaquin traveled with him to sets, watching the film world unfold from the sidelines. He observed River's kindness with crew members, his humility with fans, and most of all, the weight of expectations placed on someone so young. It was during these years that Joaquin began to internalize a quiet truth. River was the family's rising star, the one destined to lift him out of poverty and instability. Joaquin wasn't jealous. He was simply aware that his own path might never shine that brightly, aware that his place in the story was still undefined. But talent grows in unexpected ways. In 1987, during a screen test for a television movie, Joaquin delivered a scene with such raw vulnerability that the room fell silent. His voice trembled, not from performance, but from something deeper, a lived emotion that surprised even him. The casting director leaned forward, sensing a different kind of brilliance. Not the effortless glow of River, but a storm quietly forming. You can almost see it in the photos from that period. River at the center, radiant, hopeful. Joaquin slightly to the side, guarded but burning with intensity he didn't yet know how to control. 2 brothers walking the same road, yet moving toward 2 entirely different destinies. These early steps shaped Joaquin in ways the world would only understand much later. After fame, after loss, after the night that would change everything. As the 1990s unfolded, the Phoenix family's world shifted in ways no one could have predicted. River was becoming one of Hollywood's brightest young stars, a symbol of sensitivity, youth, and artistic purity. The industry adored him, critics praised him, and fans saw him as the future of American cinema. And through every premiere, every magazine cover, every hopeful headline, Joaquin was there, quietly watching, quietly learning. But fate does not move in straight lines. After River's breakthrough in My Own Private Idaho in 1991, Joaquin found himself inspired in a way he hadn't expected. He began taking acting more seriously, not to follow in River's footsteps, but to understand himself better. He dropped the nickname Leaf and returned to his birth name, Joaquin Phoenix, as if shedding the last layer of a childhood that never truly belonged to him. In 1995, his performance in The Dive marked a turning point. Acting opposite Nicole Kidman, Joaquin portrayed a troubled, impressionable teenager with unsettling authenticity. Critics took notice. Some called him unpredictable, others revelation. But almost everyone agreed. This was not a conventional young actor. There was something darker, heavier, more dangerous beneath the surface, a quality that set him apart from his peers. Hollywood began to whisper a new narrative. River was a light. Joaquin was the fire. And that fire grew brighter with each role. In U-Turn 1997, he played a volatile drifter with wild intensity. In Clay Pigeons 1998, he gave a performance layered with moral ambiguity. But it was Gladiator 2000 that changed everything. As Commodus, Joaquin delivered one of the most chilling antagonists in modern cinema. Fragile yet cruel, lonely yet manipulative, driven by longing and resentment. His eyes carried decades of unspoken pain, the kind that cannot be faked. Viewers saw a villain. Critics saw a masterpiece. But those who knew his past recognized something else entirely. Joaquin wasn't just playing Commodus. He was channeling every shadow he had ever carried. Award season followed. Interviews followed. Attention followed. For the first time, the world turned its gaze not to River, but to Joaquin. Yet fame brought with it a strange discomfort. In red carpet footage from that period, Joaquin often looks tense, almost burdened. His posture is closed, his smile fragile. Reporters ask about his process, his newfound success, his future roles. But beneath his guarded answers, you could sense a man wrestling with something deeper, a grief that never faded, a pressure that wasn't entirely his, a fear of losing control. Because while the public celebrated him as a rising Hollywood icon, Joaquin knew the truth. Talent and pain had always lived side by side within him. Every applause reminded him of the empty space, where River should have been. Every success echoed with the question he never dared to speak out loud. Why him and not me? And as Joaquin's star rose higher, the cracks inside him grew sharper. Rare photos from the early 2000s show a young actor who seemed older than his years, exhausted, withdrawn, searching for something he couldn't name. The world saw brilliance. But brilliance, especially the kind forged in childhood instability and loss, comes at a cost. And soon, that cost would catch up to him. Fame rarely protects the fragile. And by the early 2000s, the shadows Joaquin had carried since childhood were becoming impossible to hide. Even as the performances drew acclaim, those close to him noticed the signs. Long nights, sudden disappearances, and an intensity that felt less like artistic commitment and more like emotional exhaustion. Interviews from the era show a man uncomfortable in his own skin, shifting in his chair, avoiding eye contact, answering questions with disarming bluntness. Joaquin wasn't rude. He was simply overwhelmed by the attention and haunted by a tragedy the world didn't fully understand. Because behind the rising star, there was a night he could never escape. October 31st, 1993. Outside the Viper Room in West Hollywood, a dim, neon-lit club partly owned by Johnny Depp. Crowds gathered around a young man convulsing on the pavement. That man was River Phoenix, then only 23 years old. Joaquin, just 19, was inside the club moments earlier. Witnesses remember a burst of confusion, someone shouting for help, and then Joaquin running outside, kneeling beside his brother as River's body went limp in his arms. Rare photos from that night were never publicly released, but eyewitness descriptions paint a heartbreaking scene. Joaquin trembling as he dialed 911, his voice cracking as he begged for an ambulance. The recording captures a boy desperately trying to save the person who had always saved him. The world would later hear the call, panicked, raw, unforgettable. River was pronounced dead at 1:51 a.m. cause acute drug intoxication. Hollywood mourned a star lost too soon. But Joaquin lost far more. He lost one person who understood him completely, the one who gave him confidence, the one who shielded him from the instability of their childhood, the one who made the world feel safe. After the funeral, Joaquin disappeared from public life. For months, he refused interviews, ignored film offers, and avoided all questions about his brother. The press speculated. Reporters camped outside the family home. Headlines dissected River's final hours. But no article captured the truth. Joaquin wasn't grieving celebrity. He was grieving his only constant. Survivor's guilt became a quiet companion, a shadow he carried into every room. Friends have recalled that he questioned himself endlessly. Why wasn't he able to stop River from entering the club? Why didn't he recognize the signs? Why did he survive when River didn't? These were questions without answers, and they fueled the darkness inside him. By the mid-2000s, Joaquin began to struggle visibly. He turned to alcohol, often drinking alone in hotel rooms or backstage areas after long days of filming. In candid photos from this era, often captured by paparazzi, his eyes appear heavy, unfocused, as if he were physically present but mentally elsewhere. Even at award ceremonies, surrounded by cameras and applause, he looked uncomfortable, almost burdened by the expectations of fame. The mask began to crack during the filming of Walk the Line, 2005. To play Johnny Cash, Joaquin immersed himself completely, learning guitar, mastering Cash's voice, and tapping into his own reservoirs of pain. The performance was extraordinary, earning him a Golden Globe and an Academy Award nomination. But the intensity of the role pushed him deeper into drinking. Just as Cash battled addiction, Joaquin found himself facing the same demons. In 2006, after filming Wrapped, he entered rehab for alcohol dependency. The public narrative was clean and simple, a talented actor taking steps toward recovery. But privately, Joaquin was still wrestling with the ghosts of his past, the chaos of childhood, the loneliness of fame, and above all, the night he lost River. Then came one of the strangest chapters of his life. In 2009, Joaquin appeared on a Late Show with David Letterman, looking disheveled, wearing dark sunglasses, and speaking in a flat, disconnected tone. The world was stunned. Rumors exploded. Had he suffered a breakdown? Was he addicted again? Was this the end of his career? For almost a year, Joaquin remained the unsettling persona, erratic, unkempt, silent. Paparazzi photos from that period show a man who seemed to be unraveling, but the truth, revealed later, was more complicated. Joaquin had partnered with Casey Affleck to create a mockumentary, I'm Still Here, exploring the nature of celebrity, identity, and public expectation. It was performance art, intense, committed, and deeply misunderstood. Yet even after the truth came out, many wondered, how much of the act was real? How much of it was Joaquin's unresolved pain surfacing in unexpected ways? Because by then, one thing was clear. Joaquin Phoenix did not simply play his roles. He lived them, he absorbed them, and sometimes he drowned in them. Through every scandal, every headline, every moment of confusion, the world saw fragments of a man shaped by trauma, brilliance, and a grief that refused to fade. A man who could disappear into characters because he was still searching for himself. And beneath it all, hidden from cameras, was the same question echoing from a Viper room night. Why did he survive and River didn't? Rock bottom rarely announces itself. It arrives quietly, disguised as exhaustion, as numbness, as a familiar ache Joaquin had carried since the night he lost River. By the late 2000s, after years of emotional strain and alcohol dependency, Joaquin was nearing a breaking point he could no longer ignore. In 2006, only months after receiving critical acclaim for Walk the Line, Joaquin survived a serious car accident in the Hollywood Hills. His vehicle flipped, trapping him inside. When a passerby pulled him to safety, Joaquin reportedly muttered that he should have been more careful, a simple sentence that hinted at the turbulence inside him. The accident forced him to reconsider the fragility of his own life, a life he sometimes felt was borrowed, a life he wasn't sure he deserved. But the real turning point came during the aftermath of I'm Still Here. For nearly a year, Joaquin allowed the world to believe he had lost his mind. He walked away from acting, grew an untrimmed beard, mumbled through public appearances, and shut himself off from anyone who couldn't understand the method behind his madness. The mockumentary was meant to be a social experiment, but the emotional cost was real. Joaquin pushed himself into a psychological corner, blurring the line between performance and breakdown. When the film finally released in 2010, confusion gave way to criticism. Some called it brilliant, others called it careless. But Joaquin, for the first time in years, felt empty, not misunderstood, not angry, just empty, the kind of emptiness that demands change. And so, quietly, he began to rebuild. He sobered up. He cut his hair. He returned to conversations he once avoided. He allowed himself to acknowledge River, not as a ghost haunting him, but as a brother whose memory deserved something gentler than guilt. During an interview years later, Joaquin recalled a moment of clarity. Sitting alone at home, realizing he didn't want to live the rest of his life running from pain. He wanted to use it, transform it, the way he transformed every role. This shift didn't happen overnight. It grew slowly, like a flame rekindling after years of smoke. Then came The Master, 2012, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. The role of Freddie Quell, a damaged World War II veteran battling mental instability, became one of Joaquin's greatest breakthroughs. His performance was raw, unfiltered, almost uncomfortable to watch. Joaquin didn't just portray trauma. He understood it, carried it, and walked through it. The film earned him an Oscar nomination and marked the beginning of profound artistic rebirth. 2 years later, in Spike Jonze's 2013, Joaquin showed a different side of vulnerability, quiet, tender, aching in its simplicity. It was the first time critics widely acknowledged a new truth. Joaquin Phoenix was no longer just a gifted actor shaped by tragedy. He was an artist reshaping his own narrative, choosing roles that healed as much as they challenged him. But the most significant shift came not from Hollywood, but from his personal life. Joaquin withdrew from the noise of fame, choosing instead a quiet existence built around privacy, meaningful relationships, and introspection. He stopped running from his past and began to sit with it. He distanced himself from toxic habits, surrounded himself with people who grounded him, and embraced a calmer lifestyle, one that offered space for growth, for forgiveness, and for the kind of peace he once believed impossible. In rare, candid photos from this period, Joaquin appears softer, more present, as though the storm inside him had begun to settle. He still carried the memory of River, of course. He always would. But now, instead of breaking him, that memory guided him. The world saw an actor rebuilding, but those who looked closer saw something more powerful, a man choosing to live. By the mid-2010s, Joaquin Phoenix had become something Hollywood rarely sees, a man uninterested in the spotlight, yet incapable of delivering anything less than extraordinary when he stepped in front of camera. He chose his roles with surgical precision, searching for characters who reflected human complexity rather than fame. And with each film, he allowed audiences a glimpse of a soul shaped by pain, resilience, and a tenderness he didn't always show in public. But his greatest transformation happened far from any film set. In 2016, while filming Mary Magdalene, Joaquin met actress Rooney Mara. Their connection was quiet, almost invisible at first, two introverted spirits finding comfort in each other's stillness. No headlines, no red carpets, no theatrics, just companionship, honesty, and the kind of gentle understanding Joaquin had spent most of his life searching for. Rare photos of them together show shy smiles, intertwined hands, a softness in Joaquin's eyes that hadn't appeared since the early years with River. For the first time in decades, he felt safe. As their relationship deepened, Joaquin began to open parts of himself he had kept locked away since 1993. Friends noted that he laughed more. He looked healthier. He seemed anchored. And in 2020, when the couple welcomed their first child, a son they named River, it became clear that Joaquin's healing had reached a place even he once believed impossible. Naming his son after his brother was not a tribute to tragedy. It was a circle closing, a memory transformed into hope. Meanwhile, Joaquin's career reached a new apex. In 2019, he starred in Todd Phillips' Joker, delivering one of the most unsettling, transforming performances in modern cinema. He lost over 50 pounds, isolated himself, and peeled back layers of human fragility with frightening authenticity. The film wasn't just a character study. It was an emotional excavation. Joaquin infused Arthur Fleck with the loneliness of his childhood, the instability of his early years, and the grief that had lived under his skin for decades. Audiences were mesmerized. Critics were shaken. Hollywood had never seen a Joker like this. Not stylized, not cartoonish, but painfully human. When Joaquin accepted the Academy Award for Best Actor in 2020, he spoke with the calm of a man who no longer feared vulnerability. His speech wasn't about triumph. It was about compassion, growth, and second chances. It was about using pain without letting it consume you. Even in front of millions, he stood not as a Hollywood icon, but as a survivor who had finally learned how to live. In the years that followed, Joaquin continued choosing roles that mirrored his internal evolution, complex, introspective, often flawed characters searching for meaning in broken worlds. Yet off-screen, he chose simplicity. A quiet home life with Rooney, activism rooted in empathy, and a fierce dedication to protecting his family's privacy. And slowly, the world's understanding of Joaquin Phoenix began to change. He was no longer defined by tragedy, no longer trapped in River's shadow, no longer running from the parts of himself he once feared. Instead, he became a symbol of reinvention, proof that a person's darkest moments can shape, but not define their future. His difficult childhood, his battles with addiction, his near collapse in 2009, and the unbearable loss of River became chapters in a larger story of survival. Joaquin's legacy is not just the films he left behind. It is the emotional truth he brings to them. It is the way he honors his brother by living fully. It is the way he turns private pain into performances that echo across generations. And for his fans, for anyone who has ever carried grief, doubt, or fear, Joaquin Phoenix represents something profoundly human. that even the deepest wounds can become a kind of light. When we look back at the life of Joaquin Phoenix, it's easy to focus on acclaim, the Oscar, the unforgettable performances, the characters that linger long after the credits fade. But the true story of Joaquin is not found on the screen. It lives in the quiet spaces between the roles, in the years of uncertainty, in the grief he carried, and in the resilience that carried him back. There's a rare photo taken long before fame. Joaquin is a boy, standing next to River on a sunlit sidewalk. River is smiling, bright and effortless. Joaquin is quieter, observing the world with those solemn eyes that would one day captivate millions. Two brothers frozen in time. Two paths not yet written. Two futures shaped by both love and loss. Decades later, another image mirrors the first. Joaquin holding his newborn son, River, close to his chest. No spotlight, no audience. Just a man who has finally found a way to honor the past without being consumed by it. A man who understands that healing is not forgetfulness, but transformation. Joaquin's life reminds us that brilliance often emerges from places we try hardest to hide. That pain, when faced instead of buried, can become a kind of truth, raw, imperfect, deeply human. And that even the people shaped by the darkest nights can create something luminous for the world to see. His journey is not a story of tragedy. It is a story of survival, of reinvention, of choosing again and again to live. And as the curtain falls, we are left with lingering thought. Great actors disappear into their characters, but the greatest ones reveal themselves through them. Joaquin Phoenix did both.